Greetings sailors and welcome back to World of Warships and a fairly recent replay of mine. This one featuring a Yugumo division with myself and a Patreon supporter, Andy CX, whose name you probably will recognise if you've watched the channel for any length of time. Now this ship is certainly a favourite of mine on the Japanese destroyer tech tree. I think it's probably a favourite of a lot of people. It's got a lot of very nice things going for it, and overall it's just a really nice little ship to play. It's got good torpedoes, it's got good stealth, it's got a decent turn of speed, the guns actually do hit fairly hard, and it doesn't really pay any particular penalties apart from arguably AA, I suppose, but there are very few destroyers that have any kind of good AA going on these days, so it's not really unusual in that regard. So in this particular setup, there's not any carriers to worry about, which is nice, but there is at least one enemy radar, possibly more. There's only one I'm going to have to deal with in the form of the Alaska, which is going to turn out to be on this flank. But the initial worry obviously is dealing with other destroyers, and we know there's one in the cap behind us, and there are two of them in the sea cap to our east. And there's a Fletcher here as well, but they've also already taken a bit of damage. So that firepower is useful, but if they are a bit too gung-ho, they could end up getting taken out rather easily. And unfortunately, that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, I'm not sure if they've just maybe been at the edge of Alaska's radar range. Maybe that's why they decided to open fire. But as it is, yeah, they open fire and smoke, and everyone starts firing at them, alas. And so they're about to be out for the count. Maybe it's just about now that they do get radared, because even though they've stopped in their smoke, they're still getting fired at, or it could just be people firing at where they're firing from. If you're that low health, firing from your smoke is a bit of a risky business. So we can't really count on them. They're about to be taken out, and well, it was looking a bit sticky for a moment here for me as well. A torpedo wouldn't have killed me, but it would have knocked off a fair bit of my health. Fortunately, however, I've managed to dodge, and so I can try and return the favour, but this Z46 has got a hydro, so chances are this isn't going to work. As for why I started off with widespreads, by the way, and why I made that a widespread, honestly can't remember. There was clearly some thought, some logic going on there, and I could not tell you what it was, because most of the time widespreads are not really worth it. You might be more likely to get a hit, but you are then so much less likely to get any kind of concentrated hit. So there's one hit with my torps, and there's the kill. Okay, either they didn't have the hydro going, or it was on cooldown, or they were just complacent. I don't really know, but either way, that's a very nice kill. That's one less destroyer to deal with. And considering the other two destroyers on this side, we know there's a destroyer in A as well, don't have smoke, then yeah, we do have a definite stealth advantage right now. Although the Mogador can and will run me down if given the chance. This is potentially, I'm not entirely sure why I decided to open fire, other than maybe I thought I was going to get spotted anyway, but I think I decided between the two of us we could probably have a go at gunning down this Mogador, although it's a slightly risky business. But I do have smoke available, so it's, you know, I've got that in my pocket. It's maybe not that risky. It's maybe going to cost me some health, but if I can take out the Mogador, you know, it's one of those times when it's a calculated risk and you just kind of hope it will work out, even though it is potentially going to get me reset. But yeah, he's on fire. I managed to actually get him with some good hits as well, because like I was saying, these guns do actually hit pretty hard, these Japanese 127mm. It's just the rate of fire and the turret traverse that they lack in. So now I just have to try and not take too much more damage. We've got the cap between us, which is nice, and although there is a radar and an Got-Land over on that side, which is why I'm putting some torps out, because you never know, I might get lucky. And oh, there's the Alaska. This is looking reasonably secure so far. We are capping A, There was a Kitakaze down there, but they're not really an immediate threat to us. And it looks so far, although we are slightly down on points, like we're doing okay. I'm definitely concerned about that Alaska, though. They are just about getting into radar range. I mean, they're not quite there yet, but I am pulling back for that exact reason. And I probably should have said to Andy at this point, maybe he should pull back as well. But what he was doing here instead was positioning himself to make a drop on those ships to the south. Now, the radar, as it turns out, isn't actually going to be a factor. I've managed to get one torpedo into them, and I'm strongly considering opening fire to try and finish them off myself. And that's the point where, unfortunately, that Östergötland makes an appearance, and it's exactly when Andy just happens to be headed towards him. And so he doesn't really have a chance to take evasive action, and I don't even know if he had a smoke available at this point, but essentially that was just really bad luck. If I'd been down there with him, I think I'd have been equally as in trouble, and yeah. Instead, because I was swinging around to cautiously avoid the Alaska, I was much further north. And I am doing some damage to the Östergötland myself, but I'm now starting to lose some hit points. And yeah, the Östergötland, of course, can heal. So he holds fire, trying to stealth up again, which is the smart thing to do when you don't have any smoke. But I have managed to get some resets on him, and I've also managed to not take too much more damage in the process. Now, I've sped this whole section up. I was a bit unsure about how to edit this video, to be honest. So I don't know if this is going to quite work the way I want it to work, but this whole midsection was about 5 minutes of lots of positioning and looking for opportunities, and initially also trying to maybe outspot this Östergötland. Now, he knows they're in the cap, he knows I can outspot him, so he's actually going to be doing the sensible thing, which is getting out of the cap. He doesn't necessarily want that fight right now, because neither of us has allies that are particularly close by. So I'm just swinging around, trying to spot him, being a bit cautious, not rushing in, being too gung-ho, moderating my speed a bit, but also looking for maybe opportunities to make a torpedo drop. And there we go, he's out the cap, so we've kept this mid-cap, that's fine. We are, however, looking like we're going to lose A. The Kitakaze has reappeared and is dueling with our Östergötland, but the Östergötland manages to take out the Kitakaze, so that's fine. Although then it turns out there's that Östergötland, the enemy one, and an enemy battleship as well, so theirs actually kills ours. So while that's all happening, I am making a drop on the Alsace, and I've hedged my bets a bit there in terms of where I think they will be. I've spread out both groups, so I'm not going to get any necessarily concentrated hits if I do get hits, but I think he was actually moderating his speed a bit there as well. So unfortunately those are actually all going to end up going ahead of him, and so no more damage for me, at least not yet. So just keeping tabs on everybody, seeing what everybody's health is, and don't want to get too close, that might be a little bit spicy. Shouldn't be, you know, like, I don't have to worry about being spotted by the destroyer, but yeah, I shouldn't be too careless here, because of course the rune has got a good hydro as well. And because the rune's got a good hydro, I'm going to try and put my torps out on the Yugumo. And I don't know if this was necessarily the best plan. I mean, the Yugumo is just obviously the less maneuverable target, but if the rune did have hydro going, it would still have spotted those torps in time. But again, you know, either he sped up or I just didn't predict that very well. But yeah, we're not going to get any joy out of those torpedoes. It looks like I might get one there, but I think they just run out the edge. Anyway, so having capped A, the remains of the enemy team push into, or try and push into B, led by this Östergötland, but I have a smoke available, and because he opened fire at me, I've just been able to smoke. And you know, if you're in a Swedish destroyer or a French destroyer, this is a situation that puts you at just a severe disadvantage. And yeah, he really couldn't do much there. So the rune takes him out. I've taken a tiny bit of damage, but I'm otherwise fine. And now it looks like the Georgia is committed. And I didn't even have to worry about torpedoes there, because these two got landed, put them out further to the north. So I could have stuck around in my smoke, potentially. Anyway, Torp's out on the Georgia, who's just charging in. And although in terms of numbers it was kind of looking close up until this point, they're falling into the classic trap on this particular map, which doesn't always happen, but it happens quite often. Teams that get bogged down in A cap then find it exceedingly difficult to push out of that position into B and C. And so generally speaking, you want the B and C cap as a preference. It's not impossible to win from the other side, but it's a lot harder in my experience. So they've now gotten themselves into a position where, yeah, even though we don't have that many more ships, it's enough to hold them off, and they can't really push through this chain of islands without just getting kind of taken apart. And they really aren't working together at this point either. The Georgia and the Ust-Gotland were trying something, but the rest of them are all kind of split up. So yeah, the Alsace is coming in a little from the north, and there's the Rune and the Izumo, who are to our south, and at this point he's just kind of tidying up. If we had lots of low health ships, maybe this would be more of a concerning situation, but yeah, it really does look like we've got it in the bag. So one set out against where I think the Izumo's going to be, and a set on the Rune, and I was honestly not expecting anything from that. But you never know, at this point you might as well try. I have, however, got myself a little bit too close to this Alsace, but fortunately for me, they are squarely focused on the two battleships in front of me, and I think it's the Rune that's having a go at targeting me there. But I've decided at this point, you know what, even if I die, we've probably won this. So although the Pommern goes down, the Alsace is about to go down, and you know, just trying for a cheeky extra kill here, if I can manage it, because that would be quite nice. But unfortunately, at this angle, I'm having a really hard time, and it's actually the Musashi secondaries that get him. So even though I had multiple hits there that could have killed them, I just couldn't hit anything that would get me that killing blow. And unfortunately, that's what got me out of a Kraken there, because I do in fact kill the Rune. So if I'd got the Alsace as well, I would be sitting on a Kraken right now. There is still a chance, though. The Izumo is left alive. But look at how many points are left. Yeah, over 900, so there isn't a lot of time, and I really need other people to do enough damage to bring the Izumo down to the point where I could get them with guns. Potentially. That's literally my only hope, and for them not to finish them off themselves. So I've got the speed boost going, and well, there's literally seconds in it at this point. He's burning out, he's under fire, and oh, we ran out of time. So Kraken denied, sadly. It wouldn't have been the most damage oriented Kraken ever, but still it would have been nice. As it was, though, I think I did pretty well in that one, and I think Andy, if he'd had the chance, probably could have done quite well out of it as well. But we only had one person that was under 1000 XP in that, and that was the Fletcher that died first of all. So yeah, everyone else did a pretty decent amount, and I managed a whole 2700 there. I'm not quite sure how, but I suspect doing damage to a lot of enemy destroyers probably helped, and certainly nailing that Z46 in the cap circle would have been worth a fair bit as well. So yeah, overall, although not the most damage, it was a very good XP game, and it was actually a relatively close game as well in terms of the numbers of ships left at the end. But in terms of the actual strategic positioning, yeah, I think we would have likely won that one, just based on the ships we had left in the positions that we had, the caps that we had, and the amount of hit points that they had. So yeah, overall I think we came out of that one rather well, and it was quite an enjoyable match. So that's it for this replay. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, and if you have, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, Stay tuned for more.